And the G20 summit is set to get underway at Johannesburg in South Africa today. However, U.S. President Donald Trump will not be taking part in the global event. The White House has reportedly said that President Trump is boycotting the event, saying that South Africa's global cooperation on trade and climate action are not in line with the policies of the U.S. Amidst the looming absence of U.S. President Trump, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has called upon G20 leaders to tackle trade barriers that put developing countries at a disadvantage. Speaking at a media briefing in Johannesburg, the UN chief said that the global body would be doing everything to guarantee an effective representation for developing countries. However, Guterres had added that the United Nations does not have the power to reform the International Monetary Fund or World Bank.
One thing I can guarantee is that in the action of the Secretariat of the UN, we will be doing everything to correct inequalities and injustices and to guarantee effective representation to developing countries. But we have not the power to reform the Security Council or to reform the IMF or the World Bank.
On the eve of G20 summit, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa addressed the African Union, while British Prime Minister Keir Starmer addressed the Global Fund Pledge event in Sandton. The UK Prime Minister Starmer also met the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in Johannesburg. And furthermore, Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz left for Johannesburg to attend the G20 from Cologne. Now, following this, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in South Africa to attend the summit as well. Now, shortly after his arrival, the Prime Minister held a bilateral with his Australian counterpart, Anthony Albanese. The talks focused on bolstering economic and defence ties with both the countries. Meanwhile, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and UAE's Crown Prince Sheikh Khaled bin Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan arrived in Johannesburg to take part in the high-profile summit that aims to address critical global issues. And for the latest from the ground, our correspondent, Calden Ogmo, is now joining us live from Johannesburg. Thank you so much, Calden, for joining us. It is now the G20 has kick-started. Tell us about what it is like on the ground and what are we expecting from the first day?
Yes, red carpets have been rolled out by South Africa, who's hosting the G20 summit. It's the first time the summit is being held in African soil. Currently, where I am just now, it's hall number 5. This hall has been designated for media only, and I can only tell you this large contingent of media, domestic and international media, that have flocked in the center. So the security is very tight. In fact, in the morning, when we arrived to the venue, it's a park and ride venue. Like I mentioned, there's police everywhere on the street. The security is very tight. Land, sea, sky, the police have mentioned that they are not going to be compromising on any security. And I think that's given, saying that there are 42 nations that will be participating in the G20, apart from the G20 countries themselves. Today, we will be kick-starting the actual Leaders Summit. Media was asked, the time for media was 7 a.m. and we are all here. After this, we have been told that 8:30, in fact, between 8:30 and 9:30, which is a little less than an hour to go, the delegations, heads of states and governments will make their way. They will be in the next hall called 6, and they've made it very strict for media not to interact with them. So media will be placed permanently in this hall, and we will be given full feed by the SABC, which is the public broadcaster in South Africa. And the opening session is scheduled for 10:15 a.m. After that, we are told there will be closed sessions, and the session 1 of the summit will begin, where the leaders will deliberate on inclusive and sustainable economic economic growth, leaving no one behind. There will also be a presentation on the recommendation of some of the expert panels, which is the Africa Expert Panel, the Extraordinary Committee of Independent Experts on Global Wealth Inequality. Thereafter, today, the leaders will also get a chance to have a bilateral meeting with, one another. That will be towards the second half of the day. And we are told there will again be a closed session starting from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. So it's back-to-back meeting for the leaders. Then the session 2, along with the session 1, session 2 will also be discussed by the leaders, which is the topic of the session 2 is a resilient world, the G20's contribution, disaster risk reduction, and they're going to be talking about climate change, a just energy transition. So, and there will be a formal reception for the leaders today. So that will be the program for the day, Jyotsna.
Absolutely. And of course, one major thing that has been in the talks is, of course, the non-participation of the U.S. And also, I'm guessing there's also dispute with the which has been escalated over the G20 handover event that has been happening. How has that been taken? How has that been taken as in the event there?
South Africa has been very clear. They've said with or without the US, the show must go on. And here it is. Here we are. The largest economy of the world, the richest country in the world is not participating. They've decided to boycott, even though later, you may know, it's made the biggest news. In fact, the story, the news about US not participating has slightly overshadowed this summit. U.S. Embassy actually had written a communique to South Africa's Department of International Relations saying they would like to participate for the handover ceremony, which again was a bit controversial because South African presidency spokesperson has clearly stated that they will not hand over the G20 presidency to a lower level official. It will be very disrespectful of U.S. to do that to South Africa. But South Africa has said they are not going to be believed by anyone. In fact, South Africa has said the agenda that they've set, the equality, the theme of this summit, equality, sustainability, and solidarity, which U.S. has clearly stated that it does not align with their policy. Some of the major countries like France, even India, actually, saying that they stand by the theme of South Africa's G20 summit. And what is our latest, Jyotsna, I must also bring it up that we've been hearing reports and speaking to some of the sources saying that the G20 Sherpa who has been in back-to-back meetings, throughout 4 or 5 days, they have concluded actually on a draft declaration for the Leaders Summit. So that itself shows that all the nations are united, are together, and South Africa that has said before that their priority is to have a declaration at the end of the summit. And it looks like South Africa is going to.
Right. And of course, Calden, that was Calden from the ground talking about how South Africa is still going on, and we see that we can see all the leaders going there and a draft resolution, which we might get to see later. Of course, we'll be getting back to Calden as and when we get her so that we can get more details from the ground.